morning. Thank you for attending IFSI's webinar on thermal imaging cameras. My name is Randy Schlichter. I'm the Northeast Regional Representative. I'm in charge of the far north fire departments. Today's class is going to be from 10 o'clock until noon. And next, in the next 2 weeks, the next class that's on deck is the Responder Intervention Team, commonly known as RIT. That'll be Monday, July 20th at 6 until 8 p.m. and then repeated live on July 25 from 10 in the morning until noon. A complete list of our virtual classes can be found on our webpage, right on the front page, and that site is www.fsi.illinois.edu. Participants to today's class are eligible for a certificate of attendance. You must be registered online in order to get that certificate. You do not need your chief's PIN number this time. All of the other classes you do, but not for these. You must have signed into the virtual classroom through a Zoom account with your full name. And you must obviously attend the entire class. We will not be mailing certificates to you and or emailing them. You'll have to get them on the web page yourself. So wait a couple weeks, go on our web page, go on the Resource Center and log in, go on Student Central, and just simply print your own certificate. I know you didn't write that down, or you weren't, you couldn't write that fast, but if you go on our webpage, it'll explain everything that I'm saying, only a lot slower. If you watch the class as a group, a lot of the volunteer departments are watching it on drill night, which is a great idea, and it seems to work out real good since they're only an hour and a half or 2 hours long. If that's the case, ask your chief or training officer to send us an email with the list of the names of the people that attended in the group, and we'll see to it that you get your certificate. All right, let's get rolling to the meat and potatoes. Tonight's instructors, or the lead instructor tonight, is Lieutenant Jeff Kraft, Chicago Fire Department. Assisting and jumping back and forth, as you're about to see, is Special Operations Chief Tim Walsh, Chicago Fire Department, retired. And like I said, we should be rolling just in a few minutes. I think Tim has a few things to say. Tim, can you take it from here?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Hey, good morning, everybody. Glad you're joining us here today. I'm down on campus. Jeff is in an undisclosed location in a secret teaching bunker somewhere in the city of Chicago. And we're going to be going over some stuff that Jeff and I teach routinely. The way we're going to handle this is we want your input and we want your feedback. So if you've not been on the Zoom portal before, at the bottom of your screen is a question and answer button that says Q&A. You can just click on that and I'll be handling your questions. If it's a question that Jeff is going to cover future as we go forward and teach this morning, then I'll give you the heads up on that. Or if it's something I can answer, I'll answer. And if I think it's a really top shelf question or a tricky one that I can't get, then we'll drag in Jeff and we'll drag in some of the other people in the classroom to help us. So the chat button is disabled, your cameras are disabled, and your microphones are disabled. Your CEQs for class will be emailed to you. And hey guys, you know what? We really look at those. We try to improve this. This is kind of teaching in the time of COVID, and we're the only institution in the country right now that's delivering free training here on the Zoom platform and the Facebook forum. We don't charge a dime. So we're making sure that we're covering some bases for you and getting you trained up a little bit with everything that's going on in your world. So jump on the Q&A button. Let me know where you're watching from. I'll respond to all of you as Jeff starts the introduction. And we look forward to being with you today for a couple hours, okay? Jeff? You got to unmute your button there, Jeffrey.
Everybody. Thanks a lot, Timmy. I appreciate the introduction. And when we get started here today, the first thing that I really want to talk about is the types of cameras that are out there. when Timmy talked about us doing the thermal imaging class, a big part of it is there's always the debate on what type of cameras that are out there. And what Timmy and I have found out from being able to do this class and having the ability to put our hands on all the different cameras is they're all pretty awesome. It's what you're looking for your department and what you're trying to find. We've got cameras down here at IFSI that are $400 or $500 all the way up to the most expensive ones that are out there. And we're going to tell you they all do the basics. Now, the more you pay, are you going to get more bells and whistles with it? Absolutely. There's no questions about it. But it's what you're looking for your department. So what I'm going to recommend, if you really want to learn how to use a camera, the thermal imaging class that we give down here at IFSI, I think you should take advantage of that opportunity and come down and take that class. You're going to put, for this class, it's a 12-hour class. And when Timmy and I do this class, you'll probably have a camera in your hand 8 to 10 hours of that 12-hour class. So give yourself the ability to really learn how to use the camera. What we have learned through the years of doing this class is what is really going on. That is the wrong PowerPoint.
It's all right. So, hey, while Jeff's getting the right PowerPoint up for you guys, one thing we want to remind you, if you're watching from a firehouse today, look over at your officer or your chief that's sitting right next to you. Go ahead and give him this look. Can I go get a camera? Go get a camera off one of the rigs, especially the camera that you guys are using on a daily basis, and pull it out. We're going to go over operation of a Bullard camera. But like Jeff said, we use Scott cameras here. We use MSA cameras. We use FLIR cameras. We use every branded camera here at the State Fire Training Academy so that when you come down here, we can give you whatever you're using at home. So when we teach this class on campus, we pull all the cameras out, we pass them around the room and let you guys play with them. So you should be doing that now too. Jeff, ready to go now, pal?
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you. And when we talk about using the cameras, we're really talking about understanding how to truly use them. When we talk about cameras, a lot of times we get the camera, the department decides to buy one, they get the camera, they give us the video to watch. We may or may not watch the video. And then depending on how comfortable we are with the camera decides whether we're even going to take it in with us or not, or it's just going to sit in the rig and probably never comes in the building with us because of our comfort level with it. And so what we try to do is we try to build that confidence and that comfort with it so you understand when it's important to pay attention to the numbers on the camera. There's times that the numbers matter, well, that the temperature reading is. There's other times where we want you to pay attention to the colors. And the colors are the most important thing that are going to keep you safe and out of trouble. So knowing those differences is going to make a big difference in how often you're going to use the camera. While we're doing this class, some of the information that we're going to give you is a little bit off of the Bullards, but we want you to know that we really believe in all of the cameras that we're using. Whether, like Timmy said, whether it's the smaller Seeks, the Flares, the Scotts, they're all amazing cameras, and give yourself the ability to try them out and get an idea of what is going to work best for you and your department. Why are cameras so important? Well, let's think about how we're using our cameras and what's going on. We can make searches go a lot quicker. One of the biggest complaints we have in the fire service is we just don't have enough manpower at the scene to accomplish all the tasks and goals we need to accomplish. Well, if I use the camera in the proper way for to do the search as a company, I can get searches done faster and easier where we're using less air. Why is using less air so much important? Think about the standards of the new air packs that are out there right now. The times that the bells go off on the air packs is a lot sooner than what it used to be, which means I have less time in the building to accomplish the tasks and goals that are in front of me. When I'm doing my searches, think of the information that you can obtain. I can get a layout of the floor plan of what's happening and what's going on. Make sure and I can understand where I'm at in the building, where the doorways are, and where the exits are. While I'm doing searches, let's say I see a wheelchair inside the structure. What kind of information is that giving me? If I see a wheelchair in the building, that's probably telling me the person who is who owns that wheelchair is probably still in the structure. It's not someone that's going to be able to get themselves out. So it's going to be a little bit more work to rescue or help that person out of the building. Bunk beds and cribs. Bunk beds is a big thing as firefighters we miss all the time. We run our hand across that first bed, and we always forget when we hit them posts on the other side to run our hands up and see if it's connected to a second bed above. Make sure you're telling and visualizing that from the doorway. Let the firefighter see that in the camera and know that there's a bunk bed or a crib in there. Cribs can sometimes be missed because people think they're dressers or some type of other thing in the bedroom. Make sure you're pulling that crib towards you and checking that entire crib to make sure there's nobody in there hiding or that was left in the structure. This will change the way that you're going to do searches. When you do a camera-assisted search, you're allowing the firefighters to get a layout and a floor plan of what's in the room before you're sending them in there to make them accomplish their goals a little bit easier and faster. The camera can give us information to help us decide where we need to go and look for the problems. This is the doorway. Anything that we see in the camera that's white in the picture is usually the hottest thing in the view. On the other side of this doorway, it's showing us it's hot. Does that mean that there's a fire on the other side? It's possible. The camera's not going to give me that information. I've got to dissect the information once it's given to me. But this shows me on the other side of that doorway, it is hotter than it's on this side of the doorway. If we were to open that door, we would find out on the other side of this doorway was just a machine room. So it being, say, 20, 30, maybe 40 degrees hotter on the other side is enough information to be able to tell me that's where I need to start looking.
Yeah, like Jeff's saying, guys, this is just a tool to give you better information and to make you faster at your job. But we're still going to do all the other stuff that we do prior to getting out of the rig and making sure we have that camera, right? We're going to do a size up. We're going to do a 360. We're going to try and see where the fire is. We're going to check building occupancy and construction, all those other benchmarks that you normally do at every fire you go to. Or if you haven't been doing those, you need to do those. Every individual firefighter needs to do that. Doesn't matter if you're a lieutenant or company officer or a chief officer. This is a tool, no different than a Halligan bar or a flathead axe that you carry to make you more proficient on the fire ground. And that's the way we want you to address it. And if you're not taking that tool out and using it on a daily basis, even for like your automatic alarms, which we'll talk about later, or smoke scares, then you're not going to be very effective with it when the rubber meets the road. So if you have a tool, use it and get proficient at it. Jeffrey?
So when we talk about how the thermal imaging camera works, we're not going to get into the sciences and how all the computers and how it takes that information in and what it does with it and how it goes about it. We just need to know it looks at surface temperatures. So if there's things in the room, say you have a metal desk, you have a wooden bed, you have a plastic chair, they're all going to show different signs on that camera on the temperatures that they are, because everything takes in heat at a different rate. The things in the camera are going to show it that's the hottest is going to be the white colors. So if I was to take that camera off the rig and I point it on the bay floor, one of the firefighters is probably going to show up as the hottest thing on the bay floor. Inside the building, the firefighter is probably going to show up as black, not white, because in the building, everything else is going to be hotter. When could that be a different or a problem inside a structure? Well, if you have a room that's already flashed over and everything has been brought to that same temperature and it's had a while to burn, whether you're a person, a piece of plastic, or a piece of wood, you're probably all going to show the same temperature because you were brought to that levels. On your cameras, especially the newer ones, some of the older ones are just black and white and don't have the colors. Are they still good cameras? Yes, it's still better than having nothing, but having the colors on it is actually beneficial. When we look at a camera, there's numbers on usually the right-hand side, and then there's colors that come on the screen. The numbers on the right-hand side of the camera are going to give me surface temperatures. So if I'm crawling down a hallway, and I see the numbers on the right-hand side of the camera, the temperatures of the ceiling and the walls may only be, say, 400 or 500 degrees. But that thermal layer above our heads as we're going down the hallway to make it to the bedrooms could be 800-900 degrees. What's going to get me in trouble is at 800-900 degrees. That thermal layer has the heat in it, it has product in it, and when we open the door to start moving our way through the structure, we gave it the oxygen it needed. Okay, so we can get that flashover to happen above our heads. So what I want you to do and remember with the cameras is orange and reds are bad. And if I see oranges and reds in my camera, I have two options. I either need to get out of that area, shut the door, get to a safe area, or I need to be able to cool it down. If I can cool it down and I can make those temperatures where they're back into even the yellows, I can make it a little bit safer for us to move forward as we're going to where the seat of the fire is. If I can take away some of that heat to bring it down even to the 600 level, I'm doing better for everyone that's inside the structure. Now, when we spray water, what's that going to do to the visual of our camera? It's probably going to drop the thermal layer on us and we're not going to be able to see as well. So the more I can do at the very beginning with that camera, the better off I'm going to be for everyone getting the floor plan and the layout of what's going on.
Yeah, so Jeff makes a really good point, guys and girls. You know, you crack that door after you force entry in the door and you get a quick look with the camera. It's going to show you conditions, maybe where the fire is. It's going to give you layout, right? So you can share that with your crew, which we'll go into a little bit later. But then you got to flow water. If you're showing reds and whites and even oranges above your camera, you got to flow water, right? So everything that we've learned with the studies that we participated with Underwriters Laboratories and everybody else, this is not a new technique, okay? Jeff and I have been doing this for a long time. This is the way that we were trained. There's a reason we carry 500 perfectly good gallons of water on a fire engine. It's to be used, okay? It's not to be driven down the block. It's to be flowing water and used. So flowing water changes conditions in the building for the better always, and you have to remember that. This is a camera class, but you have to be able to lead out. You have to be able to flow water. You have to make the building behave with water. It's the only weapon you carry in your firefight, so you have to use it. Jeff?
And when Timmy talks about being able to use the water as a weapon, some people who have some of the older cameras that maybe don't have the colors may say, well, how am I going to be able to do this to be able to keep my company safe while we're working our way down the hallway? That's an easy answer. I have that line that Timmy was just talking about. If I point it at the ceiling and cold water comes down and lands on top of us, I know it's not hot above our heads. If water comes down and I feel those bees sting in my ears, well, I know that it's hot up there and I probably need to cool it down. If I point the nozzle at the ceiling and no water comes down, I know it's really, really hot up there and I probably need to back out of that area and come up with plan B. So the camera is that perfect tool that's going to give us the information before we spray the water. But if I don't have the ability to do that, I can do it with the water. So it's important to understand that when you receive your cameras, they usually give you that video that shows all the things that your camera can do, all the different tools and all the different handles and the pictures and all that different stuff that the camera do. And it's important to watch that and understand what your camera can do. The new flares have a bunch of different options on them that you can do with those cameras. But if you don't know how to do them, how to set them, or how to even turn them off if you don't want them to happen, it can get you in trouble. So understanding those little gadgets and how that camera works is going to be important. When you look at the cameras that are out there today, a lot of them, their processors are 10 times better than what they were, say, even 10 years ago. What they can do with cameras and the amount of information the cameras can take in the heat is an important thing, so it doesn't delay us or slow us down while we're working through it. Things that we need to be able to understand about our cameras is cameras don't tell us anything. They give us information and we have to interpret it. We have to decide what that information is that they're telling us. If I see something hot, like that doorway we just talked about, doesn't mean it's on fire. It just means that it's warmer on the other side of the door and we need to figure out why. We need to remember with our searches that we have to still remember our fundamentals. I should be staying on a wall. and making sure I'm doing a left-handed or right-handed search. I need to get the landmarks of the room and how it's laid out with the camera. We don't want to do straight shots ever with the camera. That can get us in trouble, because if the camera dies out, we may not be able to get ourselves out the same way we came in. The cameras gives us the ability from across the room to be able to look for a secondary means of egress. From a doorway, I can see where the next door is, or I can see where a window is on which wall, and I can let the firefighters know that I'm working with where that secondary means of egress is. That's going to keep us a little bit safer. With the camera, I can point it at the ceiling and I can look at where the thermal flow is coming from. I can let the engine company know, do they need to go to the left or do they need to go to the right to get to where the seat of the fire is? That's going to help them and make them get to the seat of the fire better. As searching, how does that help me? Well, if they can cool down the fire and cool down the area, ventilation can happen sooner, which means we can lift the smoke and make searching a little bit easier for us as we go through the structure. This is just a couple pictures of what things will look like in the camera. When we look at the first picture on your screen, it's showing a fire in the center of the room, but on the other side of that fire, I want you to look, we can already see that there's an egress point. So if we do get in that room, we start doing a search, I know that I have another way out of the building. From 6 to 10 feet away, I know that there's a victim dead in front of me in the second picture. I have 3 firefighters sitting there, but if I was scanning a room, I would see a victim right away. As an officer, I can then show the firefighter who's with me exactly where that downed person is, and they can shoot right to him. In the third picture, you're looking at the thermal flow. We've got a video that's going to play in a little bit, and it'll show the thermal flow at the top of the ceiling and show you what it looks like as it's flowing out of that area. Letting the engine company know that as they're moving forward lets them know where the seat of the fire is. When we take a look at this picture, again, I can see we have a doorway that's on the other side of the structure that gives us our secondary means of egress. But if we pay attention to the colors that are on the right, I have reds and oranges in that actual fire that's going on there. Is that a room I want to be sending a firefighter in to do a search? Probably not. I want to wait, maybe close the door, wait for a firefighter that has a line to be able to come in there, cool down the area before we start the search. Now, may I check that area right by the doorway, that 5 feet right by the doorway? I probably would, making sure there was no one right there. But other than that, I would probably close the door and wait for us to have the line so we didn't commit ourselves into a room that we weren't able to protect ourselves. Remember, when we're looking at the camera, whether we're looking at the colors or the numbers that are on the side, when we see what temperatures that it's giving us, remember that they are approximate. I talked to you about the numbers on the right-hand side of the camera. When I pointed at the ceiling, if the ceiling and the 2 walls are all in the picture, it's going to give me an estimated temperature. So if the ceiling is 600 and the 2 walls are 400, it's going to read about 500 degrees. Is it going to be exact? No, it's not going to be exact. So what I want you to remember is, especially with the colors, if it's getting close to where that scary number is, and anything close to 800 degrees is what I would consider that scary number, I want you to probably pause for a second and make sure you have the correct way to be able to protect yourself and the firefighters you're with. Don't commit yourself into a room that you shouldn't be in because of that flashover scenario. When you are using the camera, you have the ability to view a lot of different things and get the information from a distance. I can view different doorways. I can view which door is the hottest. So if I'm going down, say, the hallway of an apartment building, and I'm looking at 5, 6, 10 doors, the door that shows up the hottest on that is probably the one I'm going to go to first, is where the seat of the fire is. That's going to give me the information and save me time. I can investigate over my head and ductwork from a little bit of a distance away. I can get that information, get an understanding understanding of what's without ripping and tearing things open.
Hey, Jeff, you're freezing up a little bit. There you go. You're back.
This is going to be just a short video showing what the older images look like compared to what the newer images look like in the newer camera, for how fast that the processors work and how clear the pictures are. Now, in my opinion, it's still both giving me great information. I wouldn't throw either of the cameras out, but it is one a little bit clearer, one a little bit crisper. Absolutely, I'm getting a little bit better of a picture on it. But the important thing is, in both pictures, I'm getting information. I'm being able to interpret what is going on in that room and if I belong in there or not. The difference in how the firefighter looks in that area, one's a little bit cleaner and crisper. Both I can still see the firefighter though.
So there's cameras out there now that range anywhere from $300, like the Seeks, which we use down here, you know, all the way up to $7,000 or $8,000, depending on the bell and whistles and recordability. So even a small rural volunteer department could come up with some money probably for a Seek thermal camera, not out of your pocket, but you could ask your business people in town and show them how it works and get a demonstration from a vendor and show them how much more effective you would be as a first rural firefighter if you had a camera, and how it would impact your ability to make rescues and make life-saving decisions on the fire ground. So that's where you get the buy-in from the public, right? Because that's who we serve. So if you kind of make that argument to the public and to the business people in your neighborhood, even if they're just farmers, you know, they're going to look at you and say, hey, $300 is not a lot of money. We'll, you know, have some type of fundraiser to get a little bit of money together to get those tools that you guys need. So think about that. If you're on a department, and there are still many across the country that don't have cameras. We didn't have cameras in the Chicago Fire Department until a very wealthy man by the name of Jamie Dimon bought our first cameras for us. So the city was not going to buy them, and now they do, after they were shamed into purchasing some after this wealthy gentleman donated them to us. Chad?
So remember, with the cameras we talked about, it gives you information. So now my responsibility as the person who has the camera, I have to confirm what is being seen. One of the problems we had when cameras first came out is a lot of people felt they were X-ray machines. And we would have houses that were on fire, and there would be structures burning, and they would pop the front door like we do 90% of the time. They would make entry into that living room or front room area. They would point the camera at the ground, and they would see a reading of, say, 90, 100, 110 degrees, and think there was no fire in the basement. They would work their way forward, and at some point, there were a handful of floor collapses where firefighters either got injured or more. What they found out with the studies that Timmy was talking about with UL and NIST was that the cameras do not see through things. So if I point it at the floor, whether it's a wood floor or a carpeted floor, I'm not going to be able to see what's happening in the basement. They had temperatures for the UL and NIST studies, 1,200 degrees in the basement. And on that first floor, that floor was only showing readings of around 100 degrees. That's not giving me any information of what's going on beneath me. So if I'm going to commit to the first floor, what do I need to do first? I need to make sure I understand what's going on in the basement below me. I need to make sure there's no fire below me before I commit to the first floor. When I'm looking at what's going on above me, if I point it at the ceiling, it's going to be the same thing. I cannot see through it. So I have to be able to make an inspection hole or get some ideas of some way of what's going on above me before I acknowledge that there's no fire up there. When these manufacturers come out and they give the demonstrations on their cameras, they do an amazing job of telling you what their cameras can do. They give you the videos and they talk about all the different things that the cameras do that are going to be very helpful. But as a firefighter, my concerns is how am I going to get myself in trouble with the camera? What am I going to do? What are my limitations with this camera? And what bad things can I get myself into while I'm using it? I know the camera that I use at work, I know I cannot turn the camera on and off with a gloved hand. So if I get to the front of the building and that's when I decide to turn my camera on, I have to take my glove off to do it. So it's my training and in my head that I've done it enough times where on the way to the run, I turn the camera on. That way it has time to reboot. I can check the battery and I don't have to worry about once I get my gloves on being able to turn that camera on. Depth perception is an issue with all cameras. We had a firefighter that gave us the information. He was working in a cold smoke fire. It was a warehouse type building. They were in the back of the building by the loading docks. They had smoke to the ground, but it was cold smoke. So what, as firefighters, do we do because we're lazy? We're standing up and we're walking around, which is a bad thing. He walked right off the end of the dock because the camera will not let you know depth perception on where the flooring is and how it changes. There's no difference with a puddle of water or a hole. In a camera, it looks exactly the same. So if I don't know what it is, I could easily walk right into a hole thinking that it's one of the puddles of water that I've seen already on the floor a couple times. We talked about it being an X-ray machine. The camera will not see through things, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we go along. Baseboards can give false readings. For a fire that's going on in say a first floor, if the area around the first floor, one of the walls at the very bottom is showing the hottest, we need to check out why that is. It could just be that it's baseboard heat. Now, there have been a couple incidents where firefighters have explained to us when they were at the front door, they saw from the front door, there were 3 spot fires along the bottom of the wall. That gave them information right away, that there's probably fire in the basement and it's shooting up through the heat vents. We can misinterpret our information that's being given in the camera. Again, I showed you that doorway. I could have misinterpreted that and said that there was fire on the other side of the building when it wasn't. Think about your sprinkler systems. We talked about that cold smoke fire. When you have a sprinkler head going off, your camera will not see through to the other side of that sprinkler head. So if I have sprinkler heads going off, I have to make sure that I get around them to see what's happening on the other side of those sprinkler heads. Cameras, some of them are not intrinsically safe. That you need to know of what you're looking for and how much you're willing to pay for your cameras. Most of the cameras out there, though, are not intrinsically intrinsically safe. I'm not saying it again.
All right, so let's get you guys involved in the conversation. Everybody's got the Saturday morning doldrums out. I got a couple of questions. So here's a question for everybody watching, and I'll let you know what the prize is after somebody answers correctly. How far can you go into a room that's involved to the point of flashover before you can't get out? You can give me that measurement in feet. And then what is your SCBA face piece rated for before it starts to decompensate? What temperature? Fahrenheit, don't give me Celsius. Okay, these are 2 key indicators as to what we want you to look for on the camera. Jeff, go ahead, brother.
So when we talk about the average surface temperature of what something is, remember we're getting averages. We're not going to get what is happening or what is going on for that 100% range. So if I point it at the ceiling and it says 600, could it be 7? Could it be 725? Yes. So don't think that your camera's giving you exact. And we talked about the wood floors and the carpeting already, that it's not going to see through them. Understanding your buttons and what they do on your cameras, understanding how long your batteries are going to last. Those are important things. I can tell you for the camera that I use at work, When mine goes down to the red dot, which tells me my battery is at its lowest point, I can still get an hour and a half out of my battery. I should know that. When you think about where your batteries are kept for your camera, does it charge in the rig? Where do you have your extra batteries? Was it left on for the shift before? Am I checking it in the morning to make sure all of the systems work on it? These are the things you need to do to make sure your camera is going to work for you when you show up on the scene. You don't want to get into the structure, have confidence in how you're using the camera, and then it not be able to work for you while you're moving forward. Think about the things you're going to see in people's houses that can give you false readings. Paneling. In the Chicagoland area, tons of people still have paneling in basements. When you have paneling, because of what it is, how do you make it look pretty? Well, in the Chicagoland area, everyone's spraying Pledge all over it to make it shiny and nice. That can give you a false reading, like a mirror in a basement or in an area. It can make you believe that the fire is in that area, even though you're just getting a mirror image. So don't always assume that what you're seeing is what it's going to be. They had a fire in a parking garage area. While they were working through the parking garage area, the one wall in the parking garage looked like a sea of fire. While they were moving forward, they weren't getting the heat that they should have been feeling from it. Took a couple more readings in the camera. They moved forward a little bit and realized that on the other side of the wall, it was just a car fire. But the windows that were in front of them were giving them that mirror image that made it look like there was an area that was all on fire. Cold storage areas, like you see, even in where you have for your grocery stores, those.
Truck 42, 9843 South Drexel Avenue, floor HSE. Repeat, truck 42.
Can you hear that, Timmy?
9843 South Drexel Avenue, floor HSE. Refer to alarm terminal for incident data.
So those plastic storage strips with your camera, you're not able to see on the other side of those. You're gonna have to move those to the side to see what's happening on the other side of those strips. Metal covers that cover plates on whether your light switches or for your outlets. Those will give you, again, a mirror image. You may have to take those off to see if you're having heat signatures on the other side of it. Windows or plexiglass. We're going to show you a video in a little bit of what happens when you stand behind a window or plexiglass. But the camera will not read or go through that. If anything, you'll get a mirror image of yourself in that window or plexiglass. The way that you're going to be able to tell if you're getting a mirror image of yourself or if you have another firefighter standing in front of you is just a basic thing. Wave at the firefighter. If the firefighter is waving back at you at the same time, you know it's you. Tile in bathrooms. Sometimes for that plumbing wall, we go in there and we want to check the bathrooms. If we don't pop some of them tiles off, get an idea of what's going on behind that plumbing wall, we're probably not going to get a real reading of what's happening. We talked about sprinklers already. Any answers to your questions yet, Timmy?
A couple guesses. They're getting a little closer yet, but nobody. I mean, come on, guys. I could get the answer off of Google faster than you guys are answering. So once again, you can answer in the question and answer section. The chat is disabled. I can talk to you, but you can't talk to me. So the questions were: at what temperature Fahrenheit does your SCBA start to fail your mask itself? And how far can you go into a room that's just about to hit flashover before it's the point of no return? How many feet?
The picture on the left is what it looks like with your normal eye, a doorway open with the sunlight coming in. The picture on the right is what it looks like when you're looking at it through the camera. It makes it look like there's two doors. And I can pretty much guarantee you that I'm gonna go to the one on the left and I'm gonna bump my head right into the wall, okay? So when we get there, again, I have to interpret what's going on. I have to understand why that's a possibility in the camera, that I'm looking at two doors, there's not two doorways there. Things can happen with your camera. Occasionally, your camera needs to reset itself, so it'll white itself out. If you're getting a bad battery, you can get blackout, where all of a sudden your screen just goes black on your camera. These things don't happen as often as they used to with the newer cameras. Just remember it still has a possibility. Your screen freezing. Used to happen when you would scan a room if you moved too fast because the processors were taking in too much information or the rooms were too hot. You don't see it as much now, but just remember, if the screen freezes, if you're not truly paying attention, you can absolutely miss an area of that room thinking you scanned it, but it didn't because it froze. So when you are moving that camera, you pay attention to what is going across the screen. You make sure you're watching that screen, that it's constantly moving. And if it stops, you go back to that wall and you start over again. Remember what we said about the thermal layers. The sooner we can get that camera to use, the better off we're going to be to everybody. So when we drop those thermal layers, because of how thick the smoke and everything is now compared to when we talk modern and legacy, we can have that ability to lose the use of the camera while we're working. Pay attention to what you're doing there. Try to get that camera to use right away and acknowledge what will happen probably once those thermal layers drop on you. You're not going to get as good a view of what's happening and what's going on.
All right, so we had, man, you guys must all hit Google at the same time. So 350 to 450 is when your SCBA starts to fail Fahrenheit. So Mr. Daugherty, let's see who else answered correctly here. Edward Lee, Tristan, you were a little high, but you were correct on the flashover. And but 5 to 6 feet is the point of no return in a flashover. So no matter what all these tough guys tell you that have all these private training organizations across the country, everybody, if you get in deeper than 5 to 6 feet and you're not flowing water and that room flashes or the room next door flashes and you're in the flow path, and you're going to be in the flow path if you don't close the door, you're going to be driven to the ground by the heat. You're going to go into the fetal position. You're going to cook in your gear, and that'll be the end of you. So we can't stress enough that the ability to flow water while you're using your camera and making good choices on the fire ground is key to your survival and obtaining a pension or getting off to another job for the rest of your life. So you don't see soldiers entering the combat zone without bullets in their gun. You shouldn't be entering a building on fire without a line. And if you're going above to search and that's your primary mission, then you got to let the engine know you're going above. And if you're not working as a truck company, there's nothing wrong with leading out another line to go above to make sure, or below, to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of water. And a piss can is not going to do that for you. A piss can is a retreat and get out and close the door. You got to have a hose line with you. So great job on the answers. I'll tidy up all the answers now. And Jeff's going to get into some more uses of the camera. Jeff?
So what we're going to hit a little bit more on how to use the camera for a camera assisted search. We're going to show a couple videos on how you put that camera to work to be able to do that. We're going to show how the camera can be used in Overhaul and how it can help you look for those hidden fires without having to tear down every piece of drywall in the room. We think of our businesses and how we want to take care of them and when they got a bad ballast, how are we going to be able to figure out what's going on with them and make a difference to make their lives a little bit easier. How we can use our cameras for size up, hazmat, water rescues, and even RIT to be able to get our firefighters out of the building a little bit faster and a little bit easier. So when we talk about using the camera, the best and most accomplished thing that we can do is get into the building as fast as possible and get our search and rescues done as soon as we can. We talk about primary searches. What are they supposed to be? They're supposed to be quick, right? We're supposed to shoot in the room. We're supposed to be able to get in the room, get a quick search, and then get out of it. We're not supposed to tear apart the whole room. Well, think about if I can do 70 or 80% of that room from the doorway. If I scan the doorway correctly, as the officer, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the doorway. I'm going to scan high. I want to get an idea of what is going on at the ceiling level. Do I have orange and reds? If I got orange and reds, then we don't search there. When we close the door, we wait for the line. But if I don't have orange and reds, then I scan about the 6 foot level. 6 foot level is going to give me where my areas of my secondary means of egress are going to be. Doors and windows on the other sides of the room. I may also see someone laying on a couch or laying on a bed at the 6 foot level. Then I'm going to scan the floor. It gives me a layout of the room, possible victims on the ground, or anything else I need to be concerned about that's at floor level. Let's say there's no one in the room. Say your typical bedroom. I've got a bed, a dresser, a closet, maybe a desk. And the only areas that I can't see are under the bed, on the other side of the bed, and the dresser. Well, now that I know what the layout of the room is, I put the camera in the firefighter's hand without letting go of it. That firefighter and me are both holding the camera now. The firefighter puts it in front of his face, and now that firefighter scans high. He or she then scans low, and then at floor level. They have the layout of the room, and they know what areas they need to shoot in right away. So think about that as a firefighter going in and doing the search. I know what 70% of the room layout is, and I only need to check 30%. And let's say a primary search for a typical bedroom takes me 90 seconds. Well, I should be able to shoot in that room and check that room in about 35, let's say 40 seconds, and be out of that room faster. Think of how much air I've saved and how many more rooms I'm going to be able to search now with the air that I have left in my system.
Jeff, you're locking up again, buddy. There you go.
Okay. So think again about how we're scanning. I want to see those Z patterns when you're scanning those rooms. The officer does it, then the firefighter does it. There are a lot of different ways as the officer that I can connect that camera to me. We don't recommend you keep the camera in your hand at all times because that takes away your ability to be able to use your hands. Some people keep it on seat belts or other types of straps while they're going through the buildings. The things that we keep our cameras on at IFSI and that we like using are those keepers where that kind of you can pull them out and pull them back in. And the reason why we do that is that way, if I am the officer, I can put it in front of my face, I can let go of it, and it's straight on my chest. When I hand it over to the firefighter to look, there's enough for them where it's not pulling on me. They can scan, and then I can put it back onto my chest. As the officer, at least every minute and a half, I need to be checking that ceiling. So by me being able to just grab at my chest, me knowing where it is, pointing at the ceiling, an idea of what those levels are above our heads, and be able to continue working, it makes it beneficial for me. Here's an officer scanning a room. You see the officer scanning high, getting an idea of the layout of at ceiling level, what the temperatures are. Now the officer scanning the middle of the room, you can see someone at the 6th level and a heat signature somewhere. They scan the floor level to get a layout of the floor. Now I know exactly what to tell that firefighter. At the middle of the room, there's a down person. To the left side, there's another heat signature. So we're gonna be able to get right to that down person doing our primary search, get them out of that structure, and be able to continue our searches as we go forward.
And then let's talk about the conversation. If Jeff was the officer and I was working for Jeff, he'd be like, Timmy, look, I got somebody right here on the camera. He'd pull my face over to the camera, grab me, show me where that person is. It looks like a person in the bed, but he would also show our other partner, hopefully there's 3 of us, that other heat signature to the left of the person in the bed and say, hey, Bobby, look, there's somebody else down the hallway over there. I need you to get there. And then that officer, Jeff, is standing by. He's checking conditions above us while we're operating in that room. He's making sure that he's oriented inside the room. So if the camera takes a poop, he knows how to get us out just by calling us over by his voice, where we go back to his voice and we'd exit the way we came in. So all those benchmarks that we just talked about, Jeff and I, have to be followed when you're using the camera. And someone has to be oriented to the wall and the direction in which you're traveling.
And now as the officer, once they make it to that doorway back to me, I can lead them out with that camera. I can stay on that wall and I can lead them right out while I'm watching them and explaining to them, okay, in about 4 feet, we got the stairs coming up. In about 3 feet, we're gonna make a left and the doorway's right there. I can give them the information to make them pulling that down person out of the building a little bit easier and a little bit faster. With the camera, we're going to be able to show that this room is flashing over. Again, this is just black and white. I'm getting no colors here, but this is telling me with the amount of information I'm getting from the doorway that I don't belong in this room.
So we talked about it the other day when Jeff and I were teaching. What's the move here, right? You're up on the 2nd floor, you're making search, and you got fire blowing out of this room. You're the officer. What's the move here? You could probably sprawl out and get a good search of the floor right there. You're probably in a safe enough position if you have good intel to make a quick sweep there. But the move is to shut the door, right? Control that flow path. Shut the door to the room until you get a line up there. and put the fire out and go in and make your search. All right, but you could probably sweep the floor right below the door there and maybe behind the door, but I wouldn't get too far in like we talked about before. Okay?
Here we are, we're scanning another room. When we scan at floor level, what do we see? We see a heat signature under the bed. What is it? I don't know. The camera doesn't tell me what it is. Could it be a person? Absolutely. Could it be an animal? Yes. It could be a heat duct, where that's where the vent is for the room. That's somewhere we need to investigate. So like Timmy just said, as the officer, I'm going to give that information to the firefighter. Before they even look in the camera, I'm going to say there's a heat signature under the bed. So when they start looking through the camera, they're going to get an idea of what the layout of the room is, but that's probably where they're going to go first. Water rescues. Timmy's going to talk a minute about water rescues.
So we use FLIR cameras in the city of Chicago and Bullard cameras. And we actually had FLIR cameras on our helicopters. And that's exactly the picture on the right that you guys are all looking at now. That's exactly what a victim in the water looks like on a FLIR thermal imaging camera. So don't be that person on the company that says, thermal imager, I don't need that for a water rescue. Almost every fire department in the state of Illinois or across the country has a pond where kids go swimming when it's hot out, like it's been the last 2 weeks. So at nighttime, that thermal imaging camera will give you a really great look as to where people are on the shore, if they've already self-rescued on the other side of the pond or lake, where they are in the water, up to 2 inches. So if any part of their body is up to 2 inches below the surface, you may even get a signature then. And it really provides you great direction. And for those company officers out there that are watching, and chief officers, if you don't have a lot of lights on your boat, now you can watch that boat go out there and make a rescue as well on that thermal imaging camera. So if you have them available to you, don't leave them on the dashboard. Bring them with you always. They should be in a position that you deploy them for almost every situation. And Jeff's going to go into a few more.
We talked a little bit earlier about how firefighters look in the camera. When you're on the hottest thing in the room, you're going to be white. When you're not the hottest thing in the room, you're going to be dark. Okay, we have to know that when we're using them on the bay floor compared to in a building, firefighters and people are going to look different. So practicing and using them is going to give us the ability to understand that and do that. Cameras can be helpful at vehicle accidents. It can give us an idea of how many people were actually in the vehicle, was someone ejected, and can help identify for containers and give us an idea of how much is in the containers and if we need to be worried about it or not. It can show leaks from cylinders or things that are going on. So we have to have the ability from a distance to get an idea of how much is leaking and where is it leaking at. When we talk about ranges for cameras, whether you're using it for water rescue, for hazmat, for anything like that, even for looking at vehicle accidents, you got a range of about 400 feet. All right, most cameras are around that. Check your manufacturer for who you have and what they recommend for your ranges are. Most are around that 400 feet. When we look for heat signatures at accidents, we can prints, we can find bodies floating on the water, we can find heat signatures that are going to be how many people were before the accident happened. Here's a picture of a seat right now. The driver's seat is showing that someone was sitting in it. When I look at the other seats, I'm not seeing those heat signatures. So I'm probably there unless it's a accident scene.
Hey, you're locking up again, Jeffrey. So Jeff's talking about using that camera right here to take a look at the heat signatures on the seats, right? So when you go to an automobile accident and there may be a car seat in the back of the vehicle, you want to double check that automobile to make sure that nobody's been ejected, right? So we can check the scene as well, but we can check the signatures for the first two company to see if if there were butts in the seat. There's no other way to say it. If there's a butt in the seat's going to be warm. So, and that'll show up on your TIC camera. Go ahead, you're back up, Jeff.
This is showing a motorcycle. Motorcycle had 2 people sitting on it, not 1. All right, so at the scene, if someone was thrown and I find 1 person, I need to start looking for the other one also. House fires, especially for your frame buildings. From the outside of the building, when I'm doing my 360, I should have that camera with me. I should have it on, and I should be scanning the building. I can look at the windows. I can look at the frame of the structure itself. Some of the buildings from the outside, I'm going to be able to look at the 2x4s on the inside of the structure and be able to tell whether they're compromised or not. If they're compromised, then I'm not sending the firefighters in because I'm worried about collapse. Windows from the outside of the building. Your 3 pane windows are going to be a little bit more difficult to get information, but your 1 or 2 pane windows, the way that you're going to be able to tell the difference is the window that looks a little bit more squiggly than the other windows, and I don't know how else to describe it on the camera, and you'll see in the pictures, is probably going to be the ones that have fire behind them. The ones that look a little bit more normal, a little bit more square, are probably going to be the ones where there's no fire behind them.
So one of the aha moments when guys are down here teaching, and Jeff's kind of showing it now in this video, and I'm going to talk over a little bit, is when we light buildings on fire down here on campus, or we do a structure acquired structure burn, and we let people walk around with the camera during the incipient phase of the fire, and you can see where the fire is, and not really a lot of information on the outside of the building, but the camera gives you information, just like you're seeing up in the eaves here now. You're seeing heat signatures. Even along the gutter line, because probably that's softened facies aluminum, it's transferred to the gutter line down in the right corner of the building there. So it's really a great tool for first 2 personnel that are sitting in the right front seat to take off that rig to help you locate a fire so that you can make good fire ground command decisions and good tactical decisions based upon the information you're getting. Like we talked about earlier, it's a tool to allow you to make good decisions. Jeff?
This shows the 2x4s for the roofing. You can see them. They all look in place where they're supposed to be, up straight, up and down. If you saw 1 or 2 of them missing, maybe they were compromised, maybe they were leaning. Probably not an area where I want to send firefighters in. But from my camera from the outside of the building, I can get that basic information. Here's another picture of it. Shows the 2x4s throughout the structure. They all look good. They all look hit. They have good in to be the fire. This is going to show a flashover. Again, this is black and white, but it's able to show you the differences in where that thermal flow was and how it was showing. How we can use it for overhaul. When I scanned the room and I looked at it, with my eyes I couldn't see anything, but with the camera, I can see that one bay is hotter than the rest of them. That would be the bay I would check first to see if there was fire behind. If I don't have fire behind that one, I probably wouldn't rip the entire room apart. For this to be able to even show this, all we did was put a lamp on the other side of the drywall. So that all it is a light bulb being able to give that heat signature from the other side of the drywall. RIT. RIT is an important way that we are able to use the camera to be able to keep firefighters where they're supposed to be, doing the jobs that need to be done, and keep them safe. As the officer, once we get to the downed firefighter, I'm going to move past them. Once I move past them, that'll bring the other firefighters directly to where the downed firefighter is. Now I can turn around, I can give direction to what I want them to do, which tasks they need to do, and I can also give my radio report. Once those firefighters are ready to move and are ready to get on the go with the downed firefighter, I can move past them again and I can lead them out of the structure with the camera again faster than if we didn't have the camera to be able to move. Using it for hazmat, I can tell on top of water that there's chemical or product floating on the water itself. With my eyes, I can't see it, but with the camera, I can because it's a different temperature. When we talk about actually looking in containers, things that have to be in place for us to be able to do this. It must.
Hey, Jeff, you're breaking up again. So Jeff's talking about the container size up at a hazmat. So usually hazardous materials have ambient temperatures that are different than the temperature outside the vessel. So there has to be some certain key indicators. There has to be a vapor space. The temperature on the outside of the vessel has to have a different temperature, and you have to be able to see it from the outside. And then insulated containers, it won't show. So if the container's insulated, you're not going to be able to see that. So he's got some pictures coming up now that show those differences. Jeff, you're back up.
This picture shows that the picture on the left is what it visually looks like from the outside. The picture on the right shows that there's product in about a quarter of it at the very bottom of it. The rest is vapor space. Here's another picture that shows which two have product in it. They're both about half full, shows the rest of them are empty. A tanker car. The middle looks different than the two ends. So that would tell me that there is a product in one of them, depending on what those temperatures are, depending on what it carries, depending on how it's broken up. But I know that they're not set up all the same. Things we have to remember that can get us in trouble if we don't use the camera correctly. Don't do straight shots with the camera. Remember, keep your search going left-handed or right-handed. Keep your landmarks for that room. Constantly, every minute and a half to 2 minutes, you should be checking the ceiling levels above you until you get water on the fire. Until you're able to cool down that area, make sure you are in an area that you belong in. Don't get yourself committed to an area that is going into or is close to flashover. Confirm what you see. Don't assume what it is. Make sure if you're getting information from the camera, you find out what it is and you are able to dissect that information, interpret what it's trying to tell you. Once that area is cooled, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for that camera to be able to use. So remember, once water is applied, you're going to have the difficulties of using the camera as well as you would before it is. So get it to use right away. Not using that left-handed or right-handed search, or assuming that because you have the camera that you saw the puddle in front of you. This shows that it's not always what you think it is. Make sure you determine what it is. If we cannot see, we need to be crawling. Whether we have a camera or not, we need to stay low so we don't put ourselves in a position where we could get hurt. Going behind glass. You see she disappeared. In the video that we're going to show you before we end this class, you're going to actually see the person who has the camera who's filming. You see the reflection in it.
I just hold it down.
We talked about water rescues. If that person goes under the water at all, you're not going to be able to see that part of their body. So if they go 100% under the water, you're going to lose them.
Hold it down.
You're going to be able to see as this video plays forward. Or not. Is this the one that locked up before, Timmy?
Yeah, but you didn't lock up, so you're good. Let me just skip it.
Yes, it did.
Did it lock up your whole computer again? Am I back up?
Yep.
I told you. Hold on one second,
least-
guys. I'm going to click over and I'm going to get out of here, and then I'm going to pull the PowerPoint up. We only got about 3-4 slides left, and then we got a video for you to watch. Hold on one second. So while I'm pulling this up, we've talked about a lot of things today, and we got a video coming up for you that's going to kind of show you what we talked about. Kind of handles the psychomotor portion of what we're doing, and we want you to take a look at that. So let me get back in here.
Engine. Let's take a ride.
Chef, can you turn off your share screen? I'll just do it. There we go. And we are. And let me click through these, you guys, real quick and get to where we need to be. You see that now, Jeff? See me clicking through?
Yep, I see it, buddy.
All right, hold on. I'm blowing a hole in the computer. It's catching up with me. Sorry, guys. Sometimes when we do these classes, that's why we always make sure we have somebody in the main office when we're doing it. Because if Jeff and I were both remote, we would have an issue. And that's why I'm on campus today, to make sure that we get you to where we need to be. So throttle sensitivity of cameras is what I'm going to pull up for Jeff now. I'm going to talk about the thermal throttle. So the thermal throttle is a way for you to look like a superstar for those big box stores that you all respond to, right? You smell like a ballast light, or in a school, everybody has a school and they have ballasts and the fluorescent lights, and the teachers call and the kids are all out on the street and it's winter time and it's 26 degrees and they're all like, we're freezing, you got to get the kids back in the school. And the chief says, well, we don't know where the smoke's coming from. This is going to make you look like a superstar the next time this is happening, because you'll be able to determine. So Jeffrey, you want to jump in?
So when we talk about the thermal throttle, not all cameras have them. So you got to look at what manufacturer you have and what type of system they have to be able to do this. But the thermal throttle is supposed to be used for checking for a bad ballast, for a bad outlet, or for looking for hot spots after when overhaul is being done. When you use the thermal throttle, it can never be used during the actual structural firefighting, because it only goes up to 500 degrees. So if you use that in a real fire, we know 500 degrees at ceiling level, we're going to reach right away. It would give you a false reading. So when we talk about the thermal throttle, the idea of the thermal throttle is to be able to darken an area. So the way that I use it on the camera that I use is, when I'm ready to use the thermal throttle, I'll take a firefighter if it's for overhaul, and I'll take that firefighter out of the room and I'll blue them out with the thermal throttle. Now when he's not, because he's going to be the hottest thing after the fire when we're doing overhaul. Now when I go back in and I scan the room, it's going to show me on the walls which ones are the hottest. The hottest ones are going to show the darkest blue. Same thing with the ballast. If I pointed at a ballast that's on and I blew it out, now when I scan, say, the other 20 or 30 ballasts at the ceiling, the one that's the hottest is going to be the darkest blue. It'll tell me which one is the bad ballast. It's something you have to practice. It's something you have to know how to use. For my camera, if I accidentally turn it on, there's two ways to turn it off. I can hit the two buttons together, then that's the way to turn it off, or I can hit the on and off button and it will restart and put it back into normal mode. Know how to use it if you have it on your camera.
You got all that right, Brian?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, tips for your camera. How many times have you gone into a structure fire and realized you could not see a thing, and you wiped your mask and you went, oh, wow, I can see again? Every time you have to do that to your mask, you have to do that to the front of the camera and the back of the camera. Those lenses are going to get fogged up just as fast as your mask on your face. For some reason, your mask didn't fog up and you're having trouble seeing through your camera, give that a shot and see if that is where the problem is. When you're looking at the ceiling, pay attention to what the currents are above your head. Let that engine company know which way it's going. I can tell you that I have been disorientated as an engine company on a pipe, and think that I knew exactly where I was, and I didn't. If you're an officer and you have that camera, let that person on the pipe see in the camera where they are, where the doorways are, what the layout of the room is if they're feeling disorientated. It'll let them move a little bit easier and faster as they're going through the building. We talked about using it for size up. Get an idea of what's going on around the building with that camera. Check those basements, even if you have to break a basement window to get an idea of what's going on in there. See if you have any heat signatures. Know about your thermal throttles. Know when and when they shouldn't be used. Regardless of what cameras you have, you could have cameras that take pictures and save videos and do this and do that. If you don't know how to use them correctly, you could put yourself in danger while you're using those cameras.
Okay, so I'm going to turn off my screen sharing now, guys and girls, and I'm going to give it back to Jeff. And we're going to show you a video, and it's kind of a compilation video of what we do when we actually put you in a building with a camera, and we put you to work as a crew down here. We put you in several different kinds of buildings, some with cold smoke, theater smoke, some with live fire, so that you get used to operating the camera. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff. He's going to pull that video up. So I'll still be able to answer questions while you're watching the video, and we'll see you after the video's over. Jeff, did you have something?
Sani's going to pull that video up. So, yep, she's going to pull it up.
The purpose of this video is to demonstrate an oriented thermal imaging camera search to assist firefighters in completing searches efficiently and while using less air. You are encouraged to watch the preceding Facebook forum live discussion for detailed tick usage and application information prior to watching this video. Please note, the focus of this video is to detail using the thermal imaging camera. The demonstrating instructors are not concentrating on other firefighter considerations in an effort to focus solely on the training topic. As the officer enters the structure, they scan the room high, looking for heat signatures, scans at the 6-foot level, looking for other ways out and the layout of the room. Then they scan the room low, looking for the floor plan and any downed firefighters or victims that may be in front of them. They reach the first search area. The officer scans again in the Z pattern, looking at all 3 levels. The firefighter that's going to do the search scans those 3 areas in that Z pattern so they have the layout of the area they're going to be searching. As they move forward, the firefighter who did that search is able to quickly catch up to where those other 2 firefighters are to continue the search pattern throughout the building. The officer does a Z pattern in the next room where they are going to send the next firefighter in to do the search. The officer scans high, scans medium, scans low. The firefighter places the hand on the tick camera, scans high, scans medium, scans low to get a layout of the bedroom. The firefighter then checks behind the door first before conducting the search for the rest of the room.
Which is a step that's missed a lot. We sometimes forget to check behind that door.
The officer moves forward to the next room with the next firefighter to start doing the same thing. The firefighter leaves the tool at the doorway for multiple reasons. 1, conducting the search much faster. 2, to prevent the door from closing. And 3, showing them the way out of the room. Please note, we're simulating the firefighter forgetting to leave their tool at the doorway. The firefighter forgetting to leave the tool at the doorway slows down and makes the search less efficient. This commonly happens and prevents the firefighter from moving as efficiently.
See how the officer's looking back, making sure he has the firefighters with him, looking at the ceiling, making sure he's checking temperatures.
The process of using the thermal imaging camera to search a room and orientate the firefighter for the search is repeated for every room of the structure.
While the two firefighters in there, you see the officer look back, checking the hallway again, making sure that the temperatures above the firefighter's head are safe. We have a safety person in the room. You can see he's being picked up by the camera. You'll notice in this video, there's a lot of dead airspace. The reason why is because it's on our website. We want you to take this video, use it for your training, and be able to talk to your company about the things you want them to do and accomplish while you're doing these searches. You could do this before the drill to give them an idea of what you're expecting from them and talk them through what needs to be done.
As the firefighter moves throughout the building, pay attention to the heat signatures that are left on what the firefighter touches. This can be beneficial to us while doing searches so we can see where people have been throughout the structure. As the firefighter searches the last room, the firefighter meets back up with the company and they work their way out of the building as a crew. The firefighters enter the room following the officer. As the officer Z-patterns the room, they notice a down person on the couch. With the camera, the officer is able to show the two firefighters exactly where the down civilian is, also pointing in that direction. While the two firefighters are addressing the civilian, the officer is scanning above them and paying attention to what work is being done. They bring them back to the area where the search was started, and the officer moves them towards the doorway out of the building. During the lecture, the instructors discussed how a hole or a puddle of water could look exactly the same in the thermal imaging camera. The thermal imaging camera cannot distinguish between the two and could trick the firefighter into possibly falling through the hole. Also discussed in the lecture was how a piece of plexiglass or a mirror could confuse a firefighter while they're working through the building. With this piece of plexiglass, we're able to make half of the firefighter disappear, and you're also able to see the image of the person filming in the piece of plexiglass.
That was a
The way to determine if you're looking at a piece of plexiglass or a mirror or another firefighter is to wave at it. If it waves back at you, you know it's you. An important thing to remember is to always check behind it to make sure you're getting a view of what is behind that piece of plexiglass or mirror. Reading the temperatures on your thermal imaging camera, you will see that we are only reading about 155 at ceiling level. While we have temperatures that are much higher in the gases, the actual temperature of the building is only 155 degrees. Because we do not see a lot of colors on our camera, we can continue moving forward for our search. Opening the nozzle and shooting it at the ceiling, you'll see temperatures drop 50 to 70 degrees pretty fast with minimal amounts of water. This can help keep temperatures low at ceiling level so we can continue our search.
Patience at the beginning and getting a layout of the room makes the search go way faster by understanding what you're going to run into as you're going forward.
While viewing the footage from the thermal imaging camera, you will see that temperatures are reading at 905 on the camera, and the colors are oranges and reds. This is near flashover temperatures for a room. This is not a room we should be searching or going into until we can cool it off. Once water is applied to the area, we can now send firefighters in to perform the searches.
We had a couple questions come up during the video. Two were pretty good. So we had one person who asked us about using a tool during search, and I'm sure some of us were taught that way. I know I originally was a long time ago, and I know Randy was, because I think Randy's like just a couple months older than I am. I'm like 56. I think Randy's like 56 in 2 months. But long story short, guys, hey, you know what? That's the way we were all taught back in the day. But you want to use a hand tool to extend your search. Your hands that God gave you is a much better search tool than the tool. So you're gonna have a hard time being able to tell the difference between a human being and an inanimate object if you swing a tool, especially a Halligan bar or a pike pole, past a human being. Plus, you have a very good chance of injuring that person if you hit them with the tool. So if you can't lay out into the middle of the room because you can't reach because you're small like me, then you need to come off your tool, put your tool on the wall, put your foot on your tool, and then do that sweep with your hand. But like Jeff was talking about earlier, if you have a camera with you, and Jeff is my officer, right, and Jeff puts that camera in front of my face and gives me a layout of that room, now I don't even have to use my tool. That tool is a forcible exit tool, not a forcible entry tool. I'm still carrying it with me in case I get jammed up and fire conditions change, but now I know where I'm going inside the room, and I can get to where I need to be to make a proper search. And then the other question was, where do I find this video that we just watched? Well, that's an easy one. So if you go to our main page, ifsi.illinois.edu, and you click on the COVID-19 portal, that will take you to another drop-down box where you click on the Facebook forum. Jeff and I did this class on the Facebook forum as well, and we've done it here in the Zoom platform. Hold on 1 minute, Randy. I got another question here. Just check it. Do you have a recommended minimal ceiling temperature, wind to flow water as you move along with your search, like at 200 degrees above, open up and cool, something like that, for example? So my answer would be, Warren, and I'm going to let Jeff jump in on this, is 200 degrees at the ceiling temperature is not a very high temperature at all. But if you cannot see and you feel heat, or if you don't have a camera and it's above 300 degrees, that's when I would be flowing, okay? And there is no always, there is no never, right? So we were called because there was a fire in the building, and we carry water on fire trucks to put fire out. So don't get caught in the weeds too much and think about temperature gradient and stuff like that. That's all important. It's all decision-making factors when you're on the fire ground. But there's a reason we carry hose, and there's a reason we carry water, and it's used to put out fire. So I would rather get yelled at for flowing water and not get anybody hurt than not flowing water, right? We can always put property back together, and we can salvage property, but you can't unburn your skin. And talk to anybody that's been in a fire that's been burned. It's not fun. And your only weapon that you carry in the building is water. So Warren, use that water, brother. That's what it's for. Jeff, you want to tidy up?
Yeah, and I would say with that, the way that I would recommend that, if you're unsure, if you're slowing your push down a hallway at all, we all know how fast we move it when it's a drill and we're not under heat conditions. So if you feel that you're slowing down your move down that hallway at all because of heat, then absolutely apply water to the ceiling. And when we talk about applying water to the ceiling, we don't mean apply water for a second. Timmy and I are telling you, open that nozzle and move that nozzle down the hallway while it's open, while it's pointed at the ceiling if it's hot. Take away that heat and get to where you need to get, to the seat of the fire, so you can put it out.
Yeah, once you've been to a lot of fires, you guys, and you get used to it, and you even training acquired structure fires, you'll feel the temperature of the water come down off the ceiling cooler every time, and you'll get accustomed to that. But like Jeff said earlier in today's teaching lesson, if no water's coming down, ooh, you're in a bad spot. That means that water's boiling away at 312 degrees, right? It's turning into vapor, turning to steam. So that means the temperatures above you are above boiling, right? Not a good spot. If the water's coming down boiling hot, well, you're putting out some fire, but that water's still boiling hot, and you're going to get burned. So when the water starts to cool and change temperature, and you'll feel that through your hood, through your gear, it'll drip down, it'll get in there, you'll know the difference, and the bees aren't stinging you. Continue to flow, open the pipe, keep the pipe open, don't shut the pipe off, and move through the building to the seat of the fire, where the fire originated from, when I mean that, right?
And when Timmy's telling you that, if you feel the bees are stinging and you need to retreat, I'm retreating with that nozzle open. I'm pointing it at the ceiling till I get to my area, or I can close the door. I'm not putting myself in a condition where I close that nozzle and now those heat conditions are continuing to grow. I'm going to keep myself in a safe place, because if I can keep it at least under 800 degrees, I can take away that flashover.
Yeah, so long before it was cool to flow water in a building and use tank water, the Chicago Fire Department started doing it in about 1970. Okay, that's no baloney, guys. And look at the literature, take a look at it. So water is the key to survival inside a fire building, and you have to flow it. So if you remember anything from today's lesson, once you hit the threshold and you got your camera and you take a look and you have a bona fide fire, you're changing flow path once that door is open, turn that pipe on and do not I don't care if your boss is outside and he tells you to turn up, do not turn that pipe off until you get to the scene of the fire and conditions have changed and you know the water is cool. That's the only way you're going to survive on this job. It's a life and death decision, and the pipe open is your key to survival. That's all I have. Hey, we appreciate, Randy's going to tidy up here for us in a minute, but I just want to thank you guys for joining us today for about 95 minutes, taking time out of your Saturday. Like Randy said, we got another Zoom classroom coming up on RIT. We also have a Facebook forum class coming up the week of the 20th, where we'll be doing live trench rescues for you guys and kind of showing you what first two company considerations are. And then the week after, Bobby Williams does the RIT classroom for Zoom. We're actually going to be doing RIT on the fireground, carries and rescues of firefighters. So we're trying to tie everything together and give you some great training opportunities here down at the Fire Service Institute. And we look forward to you guys being with us always. Thanks for being with us. Jeff?
Yes, as Timmy said, thanks for taking the time out, especially on a Saturday, to spend some time with us. If you truly want to get your hands on the cameras and get a comfort level with them, please come down and take our thermal imaging class. It's 12 hours over 2 days. It's well worth it. You're going to get a more time than you ever thought you would to put your camera in fire situations.
Truck
See you,
42.
Jeff. Randy, you want to finish up here for us?
Yeah, you know what, though, I just want to talk just a minute about taking that tool with you during a search. And you're right, I remember those days. And there's one rule that you got to get in your head and leave it there. When it comes to searching beds, especially bunk beds, beds that have a second floor, you got to use your hands. You put the tool down, put your knee on it so you don't lose it if it's that important to you, because a lot of times when you find a victim, what do you do with the tool? Well, you put it on top of the guy and it rides out free. But when it comes to beds, always check them with your hands. And it's bunk beds or regular beds, don't make any difference. Sometimes the tools are used as a marker at the door, as you know, too. Thank you again for spending your Saturday morning with us. I'm a Cornerstone representative. As I mentioned, we are open for business now. It's slowly starting to pick up and get back the way it was, but you know, there's still some safety things that we have to do as far as the virus is concerned. But if you want to host a class, get a hold of your regional rep or me, and I'll get you to your regional rep, and we'll put it together and make it happen. I think you mentioned the CEQs would be automatic, right, Tim?
You did, yeah. So guys, your CEQs will be coming to your email, and then if you have any questions about your certificate, there's the email address right up there, fsi-elearning@illinois.edu. Give us a couple weeks to get all that information together before you see it in your login account. And thanks to Jeff for putting this class together over the last couple days this week, and thanks to Randy for hosting. And hey, listen, take care of each other out there, right? These are tough times for the fire service, and grab all the training you can. Make sure you pull a piece of hose or a ladder off the truck or a tool every day, and take care of each other out there. So we appreciate you being with us, and you guys all take care.